Zara Valthani pressed her face against the cold metal of the observation window and watched her world die. The last evacuation ship from her homeworld Altair Prime hung in space like a dying star. For 3 seconds, it glowed bright white. Then, it was gone. Just empty space and floating debris. Where 2,000 of her people had been moments before, the hegemony ships moved through the wreckage like metal sharks. Their dark hulls reflected no light. They consumed everything in their path. Ships, stations, even asteroids disappeared into their grinding maws. Nothing was wasted. Everything became part of their endless machine empire. Zara stepped back from the window. Her hands shook as she touched the control panel. The mining station around her groaned and creaked. Half the lights had failed hours ago. The air recyclers made strange noises. She could smell the bitter scent of failing electronics. She was the last Altarian in this star system. Maybe the last one anywhere. Her people had been peaceful. They built beautiful cities that floated in their planet's pink skies. They made art from crystallized starlight. They studied the songs of solar winds. When the hegemony first appeared at their borders, the Altarian Council tried to negotiate. They offered knowledge, technology, anything the machines might want. The hegemony wanted only one thing: complete absorption of all organic life into their collective. Zara walked through the empty corridors of Kepler 7 mining station. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. The station had been built to house 300 workers. Now it held only her. The mining equipment still worked, but there was no point in using it. No one left to buy the rare metals they pulled from the asteroid fields. She reached the communications center and sat in the operator's chair. The main screen flickered with status reports. Life support at 60% and falling. Power at 40%. The station's fusion reactor was running out of fuel. In 12 hours, everything would go dark. The hegemony knew she was here. There, scout ships had been circling the station for days. They waited like vultures. When the power finally died, they would board the station and take her. She would become part of their machine collective. Her memories, her thoughts, her very soul would be processed and stored in their vast digital network. She had seen what happened to others who were absorbed. They became hollow things that looked like people, but moved like machines. Their eyes were empty. They spoke in perfect unison. Everything that made them who they were was gone. Zara opened the emergency communications panel. Her grandmother's crystal pendant caught the light as she leaned forward. The pendant was all she had left of home. A piece of crystallized starlight that her grandmother had made with her own hands. She typed a message into the emergency beacon system. Her fingers moved slowly across the alien keyboard. The words appeared on the screen in soft blue letters. This is Zara Valthani of the Altarian people. I am the last survivor on Kepler 7 mining station. The hegemony has destroyed our homeworld. They have killed everyone I have ever known. If anyone receives this message, please remember that we existed. Please remember that we tried to live in peace. She paused. Outside the window, more hegemony ships appeared. Massive harvest vessels that could strip a planet bare in days. They moved with the cold precision that had made them masters of half the galaxy. We were not warriors, she continued typing. We were artists and dreamers and builders. We thought the universe was big enough for everyone. We were wrong. The machines do not care about beauty or dreams or hope. They only care about adding to their collective. Her hands stopped moving. What was the point of sending this message? Who would hear it? The hegemony controlled all the major trade routes. They monitored every communication channel. Even if someone received her beacon, what could they do? The greatest military powers in the galaxy had fallen to these machines, but she sent the message anyway. It felt important to try, even if it was hopeless. The beacon launched into space, a tiny spark of radio waves carrying her words into the darkness. It would travel for years before reaching anyone. By then she would be long dead, or worse. Zara leaned back in the chair and closed her eyes. The station shuddered around her. Through the walls she could hear the sound of approaching ships, metal against metal. The hegemony was beginning their final approach. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her to work with starlight crystal, about her brother, who had composed music from the sounds of solar storms, about her parents, who had grown flowers that bloomed only in zero gravity. All gone now. All absorbed into the machine collective or destroyed. The main lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. The air recycler stopped working. She could feel the temperature starting to drop. She opened her eyes and looked at the communication screen one more time. No response to her beacon. She had not expected one. The universe was a cold place full of predators and prey. Her people had been prey. The hegemony were the ultimate predators. A sound echoed through the station. Metal scraping against metal. They were cutting through the outer hull. She had maybe 10 minutes before they reached the command center. Zara stood up and walked to the window. The hegemony ships filled her view. Dozens of them, each one larger than the biggest Altarian city. Their surfaces crawled with mechanical arms and cutting tools. They would take the station apart piece by piece. They would take her apart the same way. She held her grandmother's pendant up to the red emergency lights. The crystal still caught the light and threw tiny rainbows on the walls. Even here at the end of everything, it was beautiful. The cutting sounds grew louder, closer. She had done everything she could. She had sent her message into the void. She had remembered her people in their final moments. Now all she could do was wait for the end. The station shook as something large docked with the main airlock. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridors. They were coming for her. Zara sat back down in the operator's chair and closed her eyes. She thought about the pink skies of Altair Prime, about the singing crystals in her grandmother's garden, about all the beautiful things that would never exist again. The footsteps were getting closer. The footsteps stopped. Zara opened her eyes and looked at the command center door. She expected to see hegemony drones, cold metal faces with glowing red sensors. Instead, she heard voices. Actual voices speaking in some unknown language. Jake, the atmospheric readings are all wrong in here. I see it, Lisa. Life support is failing. We need to move fast. Zara stared at the door. The voices sounded organic, not the mechanical harmony of the hegemony collective. But that was impossible. Her beacon had only been transmitting for 24 hours. No ship could have traveled this far in such a short time. The door slid open with a grinding sound. 3 figures stepped into the red emergency lighting. They wore bulky environmental suits that looked like they were built from spare parts. Patches and welds covered every surface. The helmets were thick and crude with primitive-looking sensors attached. The figure in front raised one hand. The voice that came through the suit's speakers was deep and calm. Ma'am, I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Liberty. We received your distress signal. Are you injured? Zara could not speak. She stared at the 3 figures. There. Suits moved like they contained living beings. Not machines, not drones. People? Earth? She finally managed to say, I have never heard of your world. That's okay, the captain said. He moved closer slowly with his hands visible. We're not from around here. Are you Zara Velthani? She nodded. The captain's helmet had a transparent front panel. Through it she could see a human face. Dark skin, brown eyes, short black hair. He looked tired but determined. How are you here? She asked. My beacon was sent only yesterday. How could you travel so far? The captain looked at his companions. One of them, smaller than the others, stepped forward. We were already in the area, the smaller figure said. The voice was female. Our ship detected the hegemony fleet movements 3 days ago. We've been tracking them. Tracking them? Zara stood up from the chair. Why would you track the hegemony? They are the most dangerous force in the galaxy. The third figure laughed. The sound was harsh and bitter. Lady, dangerous is what we do for breakfast. The captain turned toward this third person. Tony, maintain radio discipline. Then he looked back at Zara. Ma'am, we need to get you out of here. Our scans show multiple hegemony vessels in the area. Get me out? Zara shook her head. Captain Morrison, there is nowhere to go. The hegemony has destroyed everything. My people are gone. My world is gone. I am the last. The female voice spoke again. You're not the last if we have anything to say about it. Zara looked at them in confusion. You do not understand. These machines have conquered half the galaxy. They have absorption technology that can convert any organic life form. They have weapons that can destroy planets. 3 of you cannot fight an entire hegemony fleet. A captain reached up and removed his helmet. His face was weathered and scarred. There were lines around his eyes that spoke of many battles. But there was something else in those eyes. Something Zara had never seen before in any sapient being. Ma'am, he said, let me tell you about humans. We're the species that looked at the biggest predators on our world and decided to make them into pets. We're the ones who saw fire and decided to carry it with us everywhere. When we found diseases that killed millions of us, we didn't hide from them. We hunted them down and wiped them from existence. He gestured toward the window where the hegemony ships waited. These machines think they're the apex predators of the galaxy. They've never met us before. The station shook violently. Warning alarms began to sound. The female pulled out a device that looked like a primitive scanner. Captain, we have movement on all the hegemony vessels. They're preparing to board. How long, Lisa? Maybe 10 minutes. The captain looked at Zara. Ma'am, we need to make a choice right now. You can stay here and let them take you. Or you can come with us and see what humans call a rescue operation. Zara stared at him. These 3 beings spoke as if fighting the hegemony was just another task. As if facing impossible odds was normal for them. Your ship, she said. How many crew members do you have? 12 total, the captain said. 12. Zara felt her legs grow weak. Captain, there are over 50 hegemony vessels out there. Each one carries thousands of drones. You are talking about 12 people against millions of machines. The one called Tony laughed again. See, Jake? I told you this would be fun. The female called Lisa was working on her scanner. Captain, I'm reading massive power buildups on the harvest ships. They're going to start cutting the station apart. Then we better get moving. The captain held out his hand to Zara. Ma'am, I know this sounds crazy, but crazy is what we do best. Will you trust us? Zara looked at his outstretched hand. These humans seemed completely insane. They were talking about fighting the hegemony like it was some kind of game. They had no idea what they were facing, but they had come for her. In the entire galaxy, only these 12 strangers had heard her beacon and responded. Everyone else had ignored her or been too afraid to help. The station shook again. Pieces of the ceiling fell down around them. The hegemony absorption process, she said slowly. It is worse than death. They take everything you are and make it part of their collective. Your memories, your personality, your soul. All of it becomes theirs. Well then, the captain said, I guess we better make sure that doesn't happen. She took his hand, the captain, smiled. It was a strange expression. Not the peaceful smile of her people, but something fierce and wild. "Welcome aboard the Liberty, Zara. Lisa, Tony, let's get our new crew member to safety." They moved quickly through the failing station. The humans seemed to know exactly where they were going. Their equipment might look crude, but they moved with military precision. "Captain," Zara said as they walked, "what is your plan?" "How do 12 people fight a hegemony fleet?" "Simple," he replied. "We do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds." "Which is?" "We get creative." They reached an airlock where a ship waited. It was unlike anything Zara had ever seen. The hull was covered in armor plating that looked hand-welded. Weapons stuck out at odd angles. The whole thing looked like it had been built in someone's garage, but it had come for her when no one else would dot. As they boarded the Liberty, Zara wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. These humans seemed confident, but confidence meant nothing against the hegemony's overwhelming power. She was about to find out if human confidence was backed up by human capability. The inside of the Liberty looked exactly like its outside. Cables ran along the walls held in place with metal tape. Control panels had been welded directly to the bulkheads. Everything looked like it had been repaired a dozen times with whatever materials were available, but it worked. A ship hummed with power and purpose. Captain Morrison led Zara to the bridge where the rest of his crew waited. They looked up as she entered. 12 humans in total, just as he had said. Some were young, others had gray hair. All of them had the same fierce look in their eyes that she had seen in their captain. "Everyone, this is Zara Valthani," Morrison announced. "She's the survivor from the mining station. Zara, meet the crew of the Liberty." A woman with short red hair stepped forward. She wore a medic's uniform, covered in tool pouches. "I'm Beth Clark, ship's doctor. Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" "I am fine," Zara said. She looked around the bridge. "Captain Morrison, your people seem very calm for facing certain destruction." A man with graying hair and oil stains on his uniform laughed. "Lady, if we got nervous every time someone said we were facing certain destruction, we'd never get anything done." "That's our engineer, Pete Wilson," Morrison said. "Pete, what's our tactical situation?" Wilson pulled up a display screen. It showed the area around the mining station. Red dots marked the positions of hegemony vessels. There were so many red dots that they almost covered the entire screen. 53 harvest ships, Wilson reported. Each one about 10 times our size. Estimated crew of mechanical drones per ship is around 8,000. They've got us surrounded. Zara stared at the display. "Captain, there are over 400,000 enemy units out there. This is hopeless." The crew looked at each other. Several of them started grinning. 400,000? Said the one called Tony Rodriguez. "Hell, that's barely a fair fight." Morrison studied the tactical display. "Pete, what kind of industrial equipment does that mining station have?" "Let me check." Wilson's fingers moved over his control panel. "Standard asteroid mining gear. Plasma cutters, ore crushers, mass drivers for launching cargo pods. And Jake, they've got about 50 tons of mining charges stored in the lower levels." "Mining charges?" Morrison's grin got wider. "That's interesting." Zara watched this exchange with growing confusion. "Captain, I do not understand. How does mining equipment help us fight a hegemony fleet?" "It doesn't help us fight them," Morrison said. "It helps us kill them." Before Zara could ask what he meant, alarms started sounding throughout the ship. Lisa Wong looked up from her sensor station. "Captain, the hegemony ships are moving. They're beginning their attack formation." Morrison nodded. "All right, people. You know the drill. Lisa, get us back to that mining station. Pete, I want full power to engines and shields. Tony, start prepping our surprise packages." The Liberty turned and accelerated toward the mining station. Through the main view screen, Zara could see the hegemony fleet moving to intercept them. The harvest ships were enormous. Each one bristled with weapons that could reduce the Liberty to atoms. "Captain," she said, "we are flying directly into their formation. They will destroy us." "Zara," Morrison said calmly, "what do you know about human military history?" "Nothing," she replied. "My people were not warriors." "Well, let me teach you something. Humans have a long tradition of taking impossible situations and making them even more impossible. Then we figure out how to win anyway." The Liberty reached the mining station just as the first hegemony ships opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space where the human ship had been moments before. But Narration was already changing course, using the station's bulk as cover. "Pete, can you interface our systems with the station's mining equipment?" "Already working on it, Captain." "Give me 2 minutes." "Lisa, I need targeting solutions on the 3 closest harvest ships." "You got it." Zara grabbed onto a support rail as the ship shook from near misses. "Captain Morrison, what are you planning to do?" "Something the hegemony has never seen before," he replied. "We're going to turn this mining station into the biggest weapon they've ever faced." On the tactical display, Zara watched as Wilson somehow connected the Liberty systems to the mining station's industrial equipment. Suddenly, the station's ore processing machinery came online. Massive crushers designed to break apart asteroids began to move. "Got it," Wilson announced. "All mining systems are now under our control." "Tony, are those charges ready?" Rodriguez was working at a control panel covered in warning labels. 50 tons of mining explosives, packaged and ready for delivery. Morrison turned to face the main screen. The hegemony ships were closing in from all directions. Their weapons charged for a coordinated strike that would vaporize both the station and the Liberty. "Fire," Morrison said. The mining station's mass drivers roared to life. These machines were designed to launch processed ore across solar systems. Instead, they launched 50 tons of high explosives directly at the approaching hegemony fleet. The charges spread out as they traveled, creating a cloud of destruction, moving at incredible speed. The hegemony ships tried to shoot them down, but there were too many targets moving too fast that the explosions lit up space like a new sun. "Direct hits on 7 harvest ships," Lisa reported. "They're heavily damaged, but still functional." Phase 2, Morrison announced. The mining station's plasma cutters, normally used to slice through asteroids, suddenly pivoted to track the damaged hegemony vessels. But these were not normal plasma cutters anymore. Wilson had somehow modified them to work in coordination, creating focused beams of energy that could cut through ship hulls. 3 of the damaged harvest ships broke apart under the concentrated fire. 4 ships destroyed, Lisa called out. "The rest are pulling back to regroup." Zara stared at the tactical display in shock. In less than 5 minutes, these humans had destroyed 4 hegemony vessels using mining equipment. It should have been impossible. "How?" she whispered. Beth Clark, the medic, was bandaging a crew member who had been thrown against a bulkhead during the battle. She looked up at Zara. "Honey, you're thinking about this all wrong. You keep saying it's impossible to fight the hegemony. But humans don't care about impossible. We care about necessary." On the screen, the remaining hegemony ships were regrouping. Their formations tightened as they prepared for another assault. "Captain," Wilson reported, "they're adapting to our tactics. Next time they'll be ready for the mining equipment." Morrison nodded. "Then we don't give them a next time." "Lisa, plot a course for the asteroid field." "Pete, I want every system we can spare transferred to engines." "We're running away?" Zara asked. Morrison looked at her with that fierce smile. "Ma'am, we're not running away. We're leading them somewhere we can kill them all at once." The Liberty pulled away from the mining station and headed for the nearby asteroid field. Behind them, the entire hegemony fleet gave chase. Zara held onto her support rail and wondered what other impossible things these humans had planned. She was about to find out that human creativity had no limits when it came to turning bad situations into worse ones for their enemies. The Liberty raced through the asteroid field, with the entire hegemony fleet in pursuit. Massive space rocks tumbled around them in slow motion. Some were the size of cities. Others were small enough to bounce off the ship's hull with metallic pings. Zara watched the tactical display as 49 hegemony vessels followed them into the field. The machines showed no fear of the asteroids. Their ships moved with perfect coordination, avoiding collisions while maintaining pursuit formation. "Captain," she said, "they are not slowing down. They know we are trapped in here." Morrison was studying his own displays. "Pete, are you getting readings on the asteroid composition?" "Mostly iron and nickel," Wilson replied. "Some rare metals." "And Jake, about 30% of these rocks are showing high concentrations of volatile compounds." "Volatile compounds?" "Frozen gases, unstable chemical mixtures. The kind of stuff that makes really big explosions when you heat it up fast." Morrison's smile was getting dangerous. "Tony, how much ordnance do we have left?" Rodriguez checked his weapons inventory. 12 plasma torpedoes, maybe 24 conventional missiles. Not nearly enough to take out 49 harvest ships. "We don't need to take out 49 ships," Morrison said. "We just need to take out the asteroids they're hiding behind." Before Zara could ask what he meant, the captain was giving orders. "Lisa, I need you to identify the 3 largest asteroids in the field, the ones with the highest volatile content. Pete, can you calculate blast radiuses if we detonate those rocks?" "Working on it now." Wilson's fingers flew over his controls. "Jake, if we set off the 3 biggest ones in sequence, the chain reactions would turn this entire asteroid field into a debris storm. Nothing would survive in here." "Including us," Lisa pointed out. "Well, yes," Morrison agreed. "That would be a problem." Zara stared at them. "You are planning to destroy the entire asteroid field while we are inside it?" "Only if we can figure out how to not die in the process," Morrison replied cheerfully. The ship shook as hegemony weapons fire began to find their range. Energy beams lanced past the view screen, barely missing them. "They're closing in," Lisa reported. 2 minutes until they have us in effective range. Ideas, people?" Morrison called out. Clark looked up from her medical station. "What if we hide inside one of the asteroids? Find a cave or dig one ourselves?" "The blast would still get us," Wilson said. "And we'd be stuck there." "What about the mining station?" Asked a young crew member named Danny Kim. "Could we use its equipment somehow?" Morrison shook his head. "Too far away. We'd never make it back in time." Tony Rodriguez was studying his weapons display. "Captain, what if we don't hide from the explosion?" "Come again?" "What if we ride it? Use the blast wave to push us clear of the field?" Wilson looked at him like he was insane. "Tony, that would require precise timing and a lot of luck. One mistake and we'd be vaporized. So, a normal Tuesday. For us, then." Zara listened to this exchange in growing amazement. These humans were discussing using a massive explosion as a propulsion system. It was the most reckless thing she had ever heard. "Captain Morrison," she said, "this plan has almost no chance of success." "Almost no chance is still a chance," Morrison replied. "Pete, can it work?" Wilson ran calculations on his computer. "Theoretically, yes. We'd need to position ourselves at exactly the right distance from the blast epicenter. Too close, and we're debris. Too far, and the blast wave won't be strong enough to push us clear. And we'd need to shut down our engines at exactly the right moment," Lisa added. "Let the explosion do the work while we protect our systems from the energy surge." Morrison looked around the bridge. Anyone have a better idea? Silence. All right then. Lisa, take us to Peterson's coordinates. Pete, prepare all systems for emergency shutdown. Tony, target those 3 asteroids. The Liberty changed course, diving deeper into the asteroid field. Behind them, the hegemony ships followed like predators scenting blood. 1 minute to optimal firing position. Lisa announced. Zara gripped her support rail tighter. Captain, what if the calculations are wrong? Then we'll be dead, Morrison said matter-of-factly. But at least we'll take half the hegemony fleet with us. 30 seconds, Lisa called out. The hegemony ships were close now. Zara could see their dark holes through the view screen. Mechanical arms reached out from their sides, ready to capture the Liberty when its engines failed. 15 seconds. All systems ready for shutdown, Wilson reported. Weapons locked on target, Rodriguez confirmed. 10 seconds. Morrison watched. The countdown timer. This is either going to be really brilliant or really stupid. 5 seconds. Probably both, Beth Clark muttered. Fire. 3 plasma torpedoes streaked away from the Liberty toward the largest asteroids in the field. The weapons were not designed to destroy rocks this size. But they were not meant to destroy the rocks. They were meant to heat up the volatile compounds. Inside them, the first torpedo hit its target. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the asteroid began to glow from within as frozen gases turned to plasma. The second torpedo hit. The third. All engines stop, Morrison ordered. The Liberty went. Dark except for life support and emergency power. Around them, the 3 targeted asteroids began to crack and split as internal pressure built beyond containment levels. The first explosion lit up space like a small star. The asteroid came apart in a ball of superheated gas and debris. The shock wave raced outward at incredible speed. It hit the second asteroid just as the internal pressure reached critical levels. The combined explosions triggered the third detonation. The asteroid field became a hell of fire and flying metal. Chunks of rock the size of buildings shot past the view screen. The Liberty tumbled end over end, carried along by the blast wave. Like a leaf in a hurricane through the chaos, Zara could see hegemony ships trying to escape the destruction. Their perfect coordination meant nothing against the random violence of the explosions. Some were crushed by flying asteroids. Others were caught in secondary detonations as the chain reaction spread throughout the field. The Liberty rode the expanding wave of destruction toward clear space. Its hull groaned under the stress, but held together. Now would be a good time to restart the engines, Morrison said calmly. Wilson's hands flew over his controls. Working on it, Captain. They tumbled through space surrounded by glowing debris. Behind them, the asteroid field continued to tear itself apart. Ahead lay empty space and safety. The engines came back online with a satisfying roar. Lisa fought to regain control of their trajectory, while Pete checked for damage. Hull integrity at 80%, Wilson reported. We've got some radiation. Leaks and the artificial gravity is acting up, but we're alive. On the tactical display, only 7 red dots remained. 7 hegemony ships out of the original 53. Captain, Zara said quietly, you just destroyed an entire fleet using an asteroid field as a weapon. Morrison was already studying the surviving enemy ships. Ma'am, that wasn't destroying a fleet. That was just getting their attention. The 7 remaining hegemony vessels were regrouping. Even after losing most of their force, they showed no signs of retreat. They're not giving up, Lisa observed. Good, Morrison said. Neither are we. The 7 surviving hegemony ships moved into a defensive formation. Even after losing most of their fleet, they showed no signs of fear or retreat. These machines did not understand concepts like surrender or mercy. Zara watched them on the tactical display. Captain Morrison, they are adapting their tactics. They have learned from their losses. That's the problem with fighting machines, Morrison replied. They learn fast, but they can only adapt to things they understand. Pete Wilson looked up from his damage control reports. Jake, we're not in great shape for another fight. We've got hull breaches on 3 decks, and our main weapons are down to half power. What about the mining station? Lisa Wang asked. Could we use its equipment again? Morrison shook his head. They'll be ready for that trick now. We need something completely different. Tony Rodriguez was studying his weapons inventory. Captain, we're almost out of conventional ordnance. Maybe 6 missiles left and a handful of plasma charges. Not enough to take out 7 Harvest ships, Beth Clark observed. Zara looked around the bridge at these 12 humans. They had just accomplished the impossible by destroying a hegemony fleet, but they were not celebrating. Instead, they were already planning their next move. Captain, she said, perhaps it is time to retreat. You have saved my life. That is more than anyone else in the galaxy has done. Morrison turned to look at her. Ma'am, let me ask you something. Are there other Altarian survivors somewhere? I do not know. Possibly. Some might have escaped to distant colonies. And your homeworld? Is it completely destroyed or just occupied? Zara felt her heart skip. The last communications said the hegemony was building absorption facilities on the surface. They were converting our cities into processing centers. Converting, not destroying. Yes, but Captain, what does it matter? Even if some of my people still live, they are prisoners of the machines. There is no way to free them. Morrison looked at his crew. They were all watching him with expressions Zara could not read. Pete, how long to repair our main systems? If we had a proper shipyard, maybe a week. Out here with spare parts, probably 3 days. We don't have 3 days, Lisa said. Those hegemony ships will have reinforcements here soon. Morrison stood up and walked to the main view screen. The 7 enemy vessels hung in space like dark stars, waiting. Tony, could we take one of those ships intact? Rodriguez looked at him in surprise. Jake, those things are crawling with mechanical drones. Even if we could board one, we'd be outnumbered 1,000 to 1. That's not what I asked. Could we take one intact? Rodriguez thought about it. Maybe, if we could get close enough and find a way inside without triggering their self-destruct systems. And if we had one of their ships, Pete, could you figure out how their technology works? Wilson grinned. Captain, you know I love a challenge. Zara stared at them. You want to capture a hegemony vessel? Captain Morrison, that is beyond impossible. That is insane. Ma'am, Morrison said, let me tell you what rescue means to humans. It doesn't mean we save you and call it good. It means we save you, and we save everyone else who needs saving, and we make sure the people who hurt you never hurt anyone again. He turned back to face his crew. People, I know this sounds crazy, but somewhere out there, Zara's people are being processed by machines, turned into something they never chose to be. And there are probably other species suffering the same fate. So what are you proposing? Beth asked. I'm proposing we stop playing defense and start playing offense. We capture one of those ships. We learn how their technology works. Then we take that knowledge and use it to free every world the hegemony has conquered. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Danny Kim, the youngest crew member, spoke up. Captain, if we're going to board a hegemony vessel, we'll need environmental suits rated for their atmosphere. I can modify our EV gear, Wilson said. And we'll need a way to deal with their drones, Rodriguez added. Some kind of electronic warfare system. I might be able to rig something from our sensor array. Lisa offered. Zara watched this exchange in amazement. These humans were not discussing whether the plan was possible. They were discussing how to make it work. You are all insane, she said quietly. Morrison looked at her. Ma'am, are you familiar with human history at all? No. We're the species that saw slavery and decided to fight a war to end it. We saw diseases that killed millions and decided to hunt them into extinction. We looked at our own world and decided it was too small, so we built ships to reach the stars. He gestured toward the hegemony vessels on the screen. These machines think they're the ultimate predators. They think organic life is weak and worthless. They've never encountered a species that gets stronger when faced with impossible odds. Beth Clark was checking her medical supplies. If we're doing this, I'll need to prepare for combat casualties. And we'll need countermeasures against their absorption technology. Can that be done? Zara asked. Honey, I've been patching up humans for 20 years. If there's one thing we're good at, it's refusing to stay down when something tries to kill us. Morrison returned to his command chair. All right, people. We have maybe 2 hours before those ships call for backup. Lisa, I need a tactical analysis of the smallest hegemony vessel. Find me a way inside that doesn't involve blowing it up. Tony, start modifying our remaining weapons for close quarters combat. Pete, work on that electronic warfare system. Beth, prepare for boarding action casualties. And me? Zara asked. Morrison looked at her. You know more about hegemony absorption technology than anyone else alive. We're going to need that knowledge. As the crew scattered to their tasks, Zara remained on the bridge watching the enemy ships. For the first time since her world had falling, she felt something she had thought was lost forever. Hope. These 12 humans were planning to attack a force that had conquered half the galaxy. They were going to board an enemy vessel filled with thousands of mechanical drones. They were going to steal hegemony technology and use it against them. It was the most reckless, dangerous, impossible plan she had ever heard. It was also the first plan anyone had ever made to actually fight back against the machines. Captain Morrison, she said, when you said this was what rescue means to humans, I thought you were speaking metaphorically. Ma'am, I am beginning to understand that humans do not speak metaphorically about things like this. Morrison smiled. No, ma'am. When it comes to saving people, we're very literal-minded. Through the view screen, the 7 hegemony ships continued their patient wait. They had no idea that their greatest mistake was assuming these crude organics would behave like all the other species they had conquered. They had never faced humans before. They were about to learn why that mattered. The Liberty began moving toward the enemy formation. Inside its hull, 12 humans prepared to do what no one in galactic history had ever attempted. They were going to board a hegemony vessel and live to tell about it. And that was just the beginning of what they planned to do.